On another entry of the Animation Deliberation podcast, our heart rate has finally settled down. We hope yours has as well. We're talking My Hero Academia. Right after that, so we have no control over.
Sing along if you know the words. A 1, 2, 3, it's time for Animation Deliberation. A conversation and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah!
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of the Animation Deliberation podcast, where we take action animation seriously, but not too seriously. We are your hosts. I am Zuhair Ali.
My name's J. Scotty St. Clair.
And I am Andrew Rogers.
And on this Sunday edition of the Animation Deliberation podcast, we are revisiting our wonderful 1-2 punch of the trauma of My Hero Academia and just the joys of Spy Family. It's been another roller coaster of a Saturday. I'm glad we get both of those at the same time. Quick bit of news. Well, news for us. Apparently 3 weeks ago, Mox Machina dropped their Season 2 trailer. They have a release date of January 2023. And we know a lot of you listeners have been asking us to do that, so this is a great time for us to finally do a rewatch, do a Season 1 review, leading into Season 2. We hope you guys will join us for the adventures. How do you guys feel about that show coming out?
Yeah, I'm reasonably excited for it. We were talking off air. I still have not completed Season 1, but what I've seen in the first couple of episodes, I really enjoyed. And I think the timing, it coming out in January, I think we're supposed to get that live-action Dungeons & Dragons film, Honor Among Thieves, is supposed to be in March. So I think the synergy will be there. And I just want to tell the listeners, we've been promising to cover this series for a long time. We haven't forgotten. There's just a lot of content out there. And, we live in an era of instant gratification. Maybe sometimes it's okay to get some delayed gratification. So no excuses there. We'll likely do a primer of Season 1 before Season 2 comes around. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm just as excited. I need something else to scratch my D&D itch, especially going into next year with that movie. So yeah, it's going to be fun, and the first season was really good, and I'm just excited to see what other story they have to tell. They don't have a specific direction they need to go, and I think I love that because it has that, they'll figure it out as it happens, just like an actual D&D campaign. So yeah, no, it's going to be a really good time. I'm just a little surprised that we're getting this so soon after the first season ended. It seems like Amazon Prime put this at the top of their list, and that kind of makes me excited because it feels like that means they have a lot in store for us.
Any direction that they take us down is going to be an exciting one with that cast and those writers and just the pure joy and wonderful animation, wonderful comedy, wonderful action out of the show. We are excited for it. And even though we are always on content overload, that is one that we are excited to deliver to you, the listeners. So let us know if you're excited about that. We want to hear all of your feedback about Season 1, which we're looking forward to about Season 2, and we're looking forward to talking to you about it. Moving on to our Minute. As we mentioned, we have overload, but thankfully it's a Sunday, so we only got one show to talk about, and all the three of us have something to say. So, Spy Family, Season 1, Episode 17, Carry Out the Griffin Plan. Who wants to kick it off?
I nominate Andrew to go first this week because he hasn't gone first yet.
Yeah, I will happily kick this one off. I was getting my timer out all ready to go. So, yeah, this was just another weirdly irreverent episode. Seeing Anya at the forefront is always going to be fun. I want every episode to be recapped by Anya from now on, though, because that was the hands down best part. Hearing her perspective of how the world is going to end was just so beautiful, so much fun. We're getting into kind of the nitty gritty of these characters. I hope this means we're going to get a more Yor focused episode at some point, how she's going to be carrying it out. And then still at the end, they had all of those serious notes about the handler, about what is happening, and left us on this weird cliffhanger of coded language, I'm assuming. So it's just, there's still so many questions. There's so much fun happening. But I love that we can have such a silly character like Anya and have this episode be about her and me not be annoyed. I think it's a beautiful testament to how you can do a young, silly character still in a very good light. And I'll end my minute there to leave you guys some stuff to talk about.
Cool.
Do you want me to go next?
I defer to you, Zuhair. Go for it. I've gone first or second. Yeah, so.
We should really plan this.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this episode, except for that it's just a fun one. Having Anya in the forefront, as you said. the the joys of watching them work on a project together and how Desmond was just furious at any attempt of her helping. The fact that he won top prize and the way that they interpreted the artwork and everything was just fantastic. And as artists, we can just attest to how ridiculous and how amazing everything about that was. Yeah, just another joyful episode, lots of good fun. Nothing too pressing aside from kind of the questions. It does kind of make me wonder about if we do have a future episode about where this family has to break up. Like we see how Anya's bonding with Desmond and this big relationship that she has with her parents. Now her best friend is trying to steal her dad and break them apart too. Lots of drama on the forefront, and we're here for it.
All right. Well, for my part, yeah, I agree. This was a very silly episode. I love Anya. No matter how many times they do the joke where she's like scheming and her eyes narrow, and then when her scheme doesn't come to fruition, it's just like shaka. Like it gets me every single time. But I will say, the moment was the episode was not without its like heartfelt moments as well. Learning a little bit more about Desmond and wanting to be accepted by his father, the conversation with the butler on the phone, knowing that his butler lied to him to kind of try and save his emotions from this rejection that he's facing from his father. But then on the other side of things with Handler, that was a very brief part of the episode, but it's nice to learn a little bit more about her. In previous weeks, she provided some of the darkest moments, but I think she's alluded to the fact that she had a daughter that passed away. And I'm not exactly sure what's going on with her not understanding Twilight's coded language, but it kind of seems like maybe she has a terminal illness. I'm waiting for more to be revealed there, and that's my minute.
Some quick things that I want to add. The Anya eyes and the gong is gifts that I use very often, and it makes me sad how many people just haven't started watching the show yet. But it is very satisfying for me.
Yeah.
And also, I noticed in the credits that Mappa's actually credited in this, and from an attempt at a deep dive, apparently they just outsourced some of the editing
Oh,
and the
okay.
production, and I think they actually did the whole closing sequence too. And then there was this article that I didn't get to go through, but it actually had like this breakdown of how these studios use other big studios for just kind of production management and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
Well, I
Nice.
will say the opener and closer for this back half of the first season is stunning. Like they're
Yeah.
just both so beautiful, but in general, this show has no business being as beautiful as it is. Like the
Mm.
animation could be pure cartoony and it would still work because it's a comedy, but instead they have some of the top tier animators, it feels like, doing all of this. And it looks great and I love it, but like it doesn't need to be, and it is.
Oh, we're here for it. We wouldn't
Oh,
want you
here
to start
for it.
complaining about it
Sure.
like you do for
Uh,
Naruto.
I will say I still miss that song from the first half of the
Yeah.
season's closing. That was such a catchy song. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still in my playlist. Love that one.
All right.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add?
I won't take a minute to talk about them, but I will just let the listeners know I have finished Fire Force Season 2. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to the future of that. I believe a third season has been confirmed. Not exactly sure when that's coming, but looking forward to it. And I did start Chainsaw Man. I've seen the first 2 episodes of Chainsaw Man and definitely digging it.
Now he understands all of our references, listeners.
I do.
All right, so we got all of that for you. We got much more. We got another episode coming for you this week. We're going to be talking about Tales of the Jedi. So we were going to be having a couple more animated for Chainsaw Man episode 4, Bleach episode 4, and whatever else I'm missing at the top of my head. So anything that you guys want to hear about, make sure you write into us. Any feedback, anything you feel like you need to get off your chest, this is the podcast for it. But speaking of chess, oh my god, was my heart beating out of mine watching this My Hero Academia episode. I swear for a good 10 minutes of it, I stopped breathing. I was teary eyed with how intense it is. Scoots, give us a synopsis so we can talk about this traumatizing episode.
All right, sounds good. So we are discussing My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 5, The Thrill of Destruction. Tokiyami arrives just in time to save Hawks before Dabi can kill him. The villain attempts to corner the bird heroes, but Tokiyami is able to take advantage of Dabi's monologuing to evade the fire and use the escalating fighting between the heroes and Paranormal Liberation Front to escape with the unconscious Hawks. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Shigaraki kills Exless, steals his cape, and unleashes his decay. The resulting effect proceeds to consume the entire hospital, forcing the heroes to desperately flee. In the chaos, Crust ends up sacrificing himself to save Eraserhead. In the city, Deku receives a warning from the first user of One for All of Shigaraki's awakening as the decay begins to spread through the city and toward the evacuating team. Each attempt to stop the wave fails, forcing them to carry the civilians away to avoid their deaths. In the remaining crater of the hospital left behind, Shigaraki discovers nearly all the ruined quirk-destroying bullets Garaki was creating, which was destroyed by Exless before his death. A voice starts to speak in his head as he uses a communicator to summon Gigantomachia to him, declaring it is time to destroy everything.
Chills,
Ooh.
dude. Chills. Starting off with the first part of that synopsis, we talk about our fascination with how many superpowers that they come up with this show, and you think that we have this cliche of supervillains just giving their monologues because they can. The fact that it actually was an opportunity to buy time and using that to their advantage with Hawks' kind of like last breath before passing out, genius stuff. I love the genius of the show. And I'm glad that it's, just, it comes back all the time. Like every one of these powers has flaws. And the fact that it's part of this very physical chess game is just super cool.
Yeah, I recall when we recorded last week and we're talking about last week's episode, you said if certain revelations were going to happen, you would start the episode by saying, I called it. And it's not those revelations, but I totally called the parallels between Tokiyami's weakness to fire with Dark Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty satisfied to see that. But also just like the palpable emotion there when Dabi tells Tokiyami that, hey, this guy that you look up to and worship, he killed twice over here. He stabbed him in the back while he was trying to help his friends. So like your heroes do more despicable things than a guy like me does. And while when Tokiyami is carrying Hawk's unconscious body and the tears start to well up in his eyes and he's like, I don't believe him. We all believe in you. So you have to stay alive and make it through this. Like, that was just, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it because Tokiyami has been such a stoic kind of like a stanchion of like not losing his cool or anything like that. So to see that display of emotion from him and, even him like going against Fat Gum and kind of disobeying, like that's kind of out of character for him. But so to see him so motivated by emotion was really resonated with me.
Yeah, he knows how to revel in the darkness. But yeah, with the intensity, we talked about last week about just kind of like having that silly moment. And again, we needed that with, Fat Gum trying to press him like back into his stomach. That's the only little bit of relief that we get at the beginning because the rest of it is just traumatizing.
Yeah. You can't steal a ride on the fat taxi. Just running away. But yeah, it was crazy. And I love the fact that, we did talk about how there was this parallel of Tokiyami and Dark Shadow also being weak to fire. He did not back down a single moment. He brought everything he had to that. Literally was like, I can't dodge everything, so I'm going to dodge just the little bits that I can, bide my time perfectly, and then still jump off of a ledge and hope that Dark Shadow is going to catch me and have that trust in the power. Like, very early on, it felt like he was fully in control, and now that we've seen him lose control, it seems to now they're back to an understanding, and having Dark Shadow actually be its own character, it felt like throughout this fight, was really interesting, and I love to see this growth out of the character, as well as just pure, raw, they're getting more powerful. How are they going to combat these more powerful enemies? As well as the, overarching conversation we've had dozens of times when it comes to something like Attack on Titan. Who is the bad guy and who is the good guy? It's all a matter of perspective. Now that Hawks has killed someone, Twice really was just trying to help his friends. Does that make Hawks the bad guy? He came in here and did something that despicable. It's going to have a ripple effect of some kind, and I'm really curious to see what it is and if Hawks turns himself in or if Endeavor says, you did the right thing. Like how this actually trickles down is going to be really, really interesting when it comes to the end of this.
Yep, there's definitely going to be some sort of like court hearing just about everything that went down. I mean, I'm sure it'll be justified with the range of the scenario. And you were talking about the relationship between Tokoyami and Dark Shadow. It is fascinating that it is two characters who are allies that have really good communication more than somebody just controlling his powers.
Mm. Yeah, I think he's pretty unique in that regard, as far as like his quirk originating like a separate entity in a way, as much
Mm-hmm.
as they are connected. I can't think of anybody else that has a power quite like that. So yeah, definitely cool to explore.
Yeah. I also consistently forget that he's not a bird. Like every time that he takes the cloak off to fight with Dark Shadow and he has human arms, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, he's just a person with a bird head. That like in my head, he's a raven wearing a cloak all the time until those moments we get in the fight. And I don't know, it's weird that it's not a weakness, but it still throws me off every single time.
I've often thought about that as well, because like we know like their quirks manifest at some point during their childhood. So like before that, was he just a regular person, and then like he just started to like sprout a beak and feathers one day and like had to totally adapt his life? But
Because I can only imagine the trauma of like conceiving this child and just during birth, just oh, we can see the beak. The what?
I mean, my headcanon is like mom is human, dad is full bird, and he like just has the head, and then
Okay.
Dark Shadow is the quirk that came later. But I'm
Okay.
now very
Okay.
curious to see because there has been mention of physical quirks being different, just in the way that like Aizawa can't erase someone whose quirk is to be like he couldn't erase Orca and make him a human again. Like he's
Yeah.
still gang Orca all the
Oh,
time.
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there has to be some difference. I don't know if they're ever going to go into it, but there's something there.
I
Okay.
sent you guys pictures of kind of like fan art of what he would look like
Oh
as a human, and
no.
it's very
Oh,
consistent. I love the way it looks.
Okay. Yeah.
he looks like Aizawa in these human pictures a little bit, like the
A
high
little
school
bit.
Aizawa.
Yeah. Kind of.
Uh, Well,
Yeah.
don't worry, listeners. If you're curious what we're looking at, when this episode goes up, we're going to post these on our Instagram story, Animation Deliberation on Instagram, and you'll be able to see them there.
Cool. Cool.
All right, so I shared my emotional trauma with how this hospital scene went down. How did you guys feel watching all that?
I haven't felt this way since the Thanos snap. Like that's the
Oh, nice.
parallel that I can make to this is it felt like seeing the snap, watching everything go wrong and screen fading to black. Like that's exactly how it went to see all of this destruction just literally be unstoppable. Like I almost thought we were going to have a moment that Deku would stop the destruction
Mm,
and no, not even all for one. Did I get that right? Does he have all for one? This is gonna get. He has one for all. Yes.
yes.
Remember, the villain is selfish.
The villain is selfish, so it's all for one,
Yeah.
and helpful is one for all. Yeah. So yeah, I thought one for all might be able to stop, the all for one stretching power, but
Mm.
it didn't, and that was the moment of like, oh no, this is happening, and this is possibly the scariest thing. I don't know what's going to happen from this point on. So yeah, it was just I couldn't breathe. It was just silent, holding my breath, waiting to see what came next.
Yeah, I would relate my emotional state during that whole proceeding to I can't think of the character's name, but it's one of Endeavor's sidekicks, the one with the green flaming hair, where she just has that moment of desperation where she's like, "Endeavor, answer me." Even if it's not Endeavor, like somebody answer me, somebody tell me what's going on. Like that's how I felt. I was like, I need answers. I need to know that these people are safe or not. And
Mo Kamiji.
Mokamiji. Okay. I
Like
probably
Mo's
won't
her
remember.
first name.
Okay. Well, Mo is easier. I can remember
Yeah.
Mo. uh, but anyway, yeah, just, um, really, really fearing for every single character that was in that state of absolute danger and really feeling how dangerous that was. And I feel kind of bad in retrospect for giving Crust crap because he made that sacrifice for Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Was
it
he the
makes me
shield one?
Yeah,
Okay.
he generated like the hexagonal shields. He was like the one for sure that we kind of saw he gave the thumbs up and faded away into ash. But
That was the tearjerker moment for me.
yeah,
Like seeing the All Might smile, I was like, no, he gave it up.
yeah, I didn't
That's what
feel
heroes do.
yeah, I didn't feel quite as bad for Exless because, like we talked about it last week, that was
Yeah.
kind of a given. I still felt bad for him, but seeing that his cape got kind of like co-opted by Shigaraki, I had seen Shigaraki
Hmm.
like wearing this cape and like the credits and stuff like that. So to know that he's kind of like his memory is being almost like bastardized in a way, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
like that makes it hurt a little bit more.
Yeah, because it's again about the villain stereotypes. It's not, "Ha, I'm a villain, so I'm going to wear this red cloak and destroy everybody." It's like, "I'm really cold because I just came out of this wet tube for a few days."
Hmm.
Comforting cape, which is incredible that he decayed like the rest of his body and clothes and everything, but managed to spare the cape.
Hmm.
Very impressive control, I must say.
But that's
Hmm.
exactly what I was going to say is how rude that is. The fact that he has no regard for the human life and just completely decays that, but says, maybe I'll keep the cape around, as opposed to wounding him so that he can't fight. No, he's just going to kill him entirely. Like,
Yeah.
that just speaks to his malevolence that he only cared about himself in that moment.
Since we're making Marvel references to Infinity War, the sentiment that you were sharing regarding Mo chattering over the radio reminds me of the beginning of Infinity War when you hear the Asgardians like, "We're under attack, we need
Oh
help,
yeah,
anybody that can come in." Like,
yeah.
oh boy.
Fun
And
fact: that was Kenneth Branagh who did the first Thor film.
who
Little
was that?
voice cameo by him. He's a director. He does.
Oh, cool.
He did like Death on the Orient Express. He was the bad guy in Tenet. He's a pretty well known actor and director. But yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really cool way to bring him back. But yeah, we got to see our Class 1A heroes in action, and it, like, man, do they impress me. Like,
Hmm.
we've seen them in villain situations plenty of times, but the fact that, like, they acted like that when it came to "Don't panic, don't panic. Okay, everybody run now and put zero gravity on this bus and start blasting away with this cranky old oh no, she was a happy old lady. She was a
Have a
cranky
With a
old
chocolate
black
child
girl.
bar.
in his teeth, though. That was the best part. He put the kid's shirt in his teeth and was holding
Yeah,
him.
dude, I am just so fascinated with
That
these
was great.
characters. They are incredible. They are talented. They're putting their powers to full use. Deku going up to 45% to trying to kick that thing down and just stepping into action. Like, oh man, my heart rate is going up again just like thinking about this episode. Like, they are just so impressive, but I am simultaneously so terrified for everybody.
Yeah, not to take away from the intensity of that moment and how great it was to see, Class 1A really step up and show their growth there. But it did, you mentioning the 45% reminds me of something that I've thought about like a few times, but this is the most recent opportunity I've had to think about it. Like the power is called full cowling, but he's not using it to its full potential. So I was just like, would you call it like half cowling, like 2/3 cowling? I don't,
I will headcanon to the fact that he's using his whole body and not
okay.
percentage of power.
Okay. Fair
Because
enough.
he was focused on his finger and then just his arms for a while. So full
Yeah.
cowling, it's like literally from the tip of his hair to his toes. All
Okay.
for one is being spread throughout his body.
Okay. And I know All Might has used like United States of Smash and power moves like that, but was this the first time we've seen Deku use St. Louis? Like that kind of stood out to me. I was like, that
I
sounds new.
think earlier
No.
he said
Okay.
it because he was just trying to rebrand. And I think there was like a moment with All Might where he was like, "Hey, did you see? Like, I added a different city to honor you and this and that." And I think it
Okay.
was St.
Okay.
Louis for that one. I think that was like season
Okay.
1 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah, because I want to say, like, all of Class 1A was like, hey, that's kind of close to All Might's thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's right.
And he
That's
was just
right.
like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
honoring him. I have nothing to do with him. No,
yeah,
don't look over here.
That's
Like, that
right.
was when he was still
Yeah.
trying to figure things out, I think.
For
yeah. So
sure.
Detroit is the single punch. St. Louis is the kick. Oklahoma is like the cross arm.
Okay.
United States is just fuck you, you're dead. Um,
There's also like a Connecticut or something in there. There was like a random one that I was like, where'd this come
something in New England. It was
Okay.
either that or New Hampshire. I don't remember. I don't remember what that one was.
But yeah, I mean, on top of those powers, though, I was kind of surprised how adept he was with Black Whip as well. Like, he just
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
pulled that right out and was like, okay, here we go. We're doing this.
we're
Like,
going.
no questions. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
because
was,
there was a 3-month time period that they were training with Endeavor at the time that we were watching Villain Academy.
Mm.
yeah. And speak of time periods, there was also like a little flashback. Um, or when he had the flashback to the first time that he talked to the original One for All,
Yeah.
there was that moment where he was like talking to All Might, and I didn't realize quite how much they've aged up these characters until we had that perfect flash of young Deku from 3 seasons ago to Deku now. There is a very stark difference in how mature they've made him look,
Hmm.
and it definitely then just showed in all of their powers, not just Black Whip, but also like, Uravity using her tether to pick up other people, and to see the way that they were all using both their skills, their quirks, their costumes, everything coming together. It's really just, again, showing that growth continuously that we've seen out of all of them, and I love where it's going.
I think of Jay Scotty's favorite thing with Ida, just moving his arm as he was
Yeah,
talking to people about how they needed to move.
that was great. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
And I forgot about my other favorite thing as we're talking about side characters. The fact that they got the cats out of there, like all of the
Oh yeah.
animals, you gotta come with
Oh
us.
yeah,
We're evacuating everyone. I was like, I didn't need this note, but I love that it's here
it's like
because
way
the
to go,
cats are
Coda.
safe. Ah,
It was like you're telling all these people, hey, we need to move. It's going to become a battle zone soon. And these people are leaving their homes. They're worried about their possessions. They don't know what's going to be happening next. So to be in that situation where they're being told to remain calm and there's an army of kittens just happily walking over, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and that brings another thing to mind to me. It is nice to get to spend that time with actual, civilians. And as hilarious as that moment was with Bakugo and the old woman offering him a chocolate bun, like it's, it's,
If you
it,
want the chocolate, then take it yourself.
yeah, right.
and then
Uh,
he took it though. He still took it himself.
yeah, it does make me think about the beginning of the episode because if I had any complaint about this episode, it's something that you've talked about with other animes you hear, but like the number of flashbacks. And I did feel like this episode was a little flashback heavy, but I'm thinking like in the opening of the episode where we saw what was happening with Mirko again, but it showed things from like a slightly different perspective where we had like this headquarters where these people that were helping coordinate the attack with the heroes, they were talking about the Nomus, and they were like, well, remember, if these new high ends are anything like the one that we encountered a few months back, it took the two top level heroes to take that one out, and they almost didn't. So if there are multiple ones
Hmm.
of those, like, what are we going to do? So just to have like those humans versus like the actual civilians that aren't used to being around heroes and how they're kind of in awe of them was nice for me. But talking about the different perspectives there, did we I was trying to remember. We saw in this episode for sure. Xless was the one that destroyed that machine that
Hmm.
eventually created the shock that woke Shigaraki up. Did we see that in the last episode? Because I remember Andrew, you had some qualms about how that all went down.
I don't think we did, because I
Okay.
specifically thought to myself, oh, the electricity from him blowing that up must have been the electricity that shocked the water. And suddenly my qualms were gone. I was like, oh, it's a
Okay.
cause and effect situation. So unless I'm misremembering or just wasn't paying close enough attention, I don't believe it was there the first time, because I also took note of it in the start of this episode.
Okay. I thought so. Just wanted to
I
confirm.
thought I remembered seeing him blow something up at the end of last one,
I know
but
he
maybe they maybe
questioned the
they just
machine.
maybe they just yeah, maybe that was it. I think they just put it into more detail in this episode
Okay. That makes sense.
because I don't remember seeing the thing like sitting next to the water either.
Oh, yeah, the cable. Yeah, the
Yeah.
exposed cable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just like saw the shock and he woke up, because I
Yeah, and
think
there
at
was
that point they were
things
focusing.
destructing, like one spark went in and hit it or something like that. And it just didn't take much, and it was just artistic and this and that. But if that's the case, if this was more detailed than the last one was, then good for them because it's the end of the episode last week. We just need emotional engagement. Where for this one, it is the technicalities of how it is because again, we know that these writers are genius.
Hmm. Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't until you just brought up the Nomus, though, Jay Scotty. I hadn't thought about the ramp that this season is now on. The Nomus are dead. Shigaraki decayed them in the
Oh,
process of
right.
decaying everything else. So
True.
suddenly, what was such a problem for us to fight before is now literally no longer a threat because we have bigger fish to fry. And that's terrifying to think about how many heroes we almost lost already.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the Doctor has put so much emphasis on how long it takes us to make a normal Nomu, and then how long it takes to make an actual Nomu when they have All for One, and how important that facility was because all their stuff was over there to do the research and make the stuff, and they don't have anything like that. So we may, unless they have like another supply hiding, I don't think we're going to see Nomus for a while,
Yeah.
unless All for One gets out and he starts speeding up that process again since the Doctor's still around.
Yeah, and at the mention of the doctor, he's been on such an emotional roller coaster here lately, like mourning his nomus that go away, and to bemoaning the fact that his life's work is over. But then when he's being carried away and sees the ramifications of Shigaraki's decay, and then he just like turns right back around. It's like, oh,
So
we've got this in the bag. There's nothing
smug.
you can do to stop us.
So smug. I hate
So
him
I need
so
to
much.
ask, because I feel like this is kind of an alignment chart test here. Because I was watching it with Monica, and she kept yelling at present Mike, just drop him, as they're like trying to get away as quickly as possible, and everything's decaying. Like I had to be like, I don't know, what would I do in that moment? If I'm the hero, am I supposed to save him? Like, he is another person, but also if he's risking us not getting away, because like the Nomu grabbed the doctor, just let go of the doctor. Like, let the Nomu
Mm.
take him and let him decay. Like, I don't know. What do you think? Should Present Mike have dropped him, or did he do the right thing? Especially with how disgusted he was. I was kind of surprised he wasn't just like, all right, this is it.
I would not have been mad at present Mike if he dropped him at all, and I would
No.
totally understand that. And I think it could provide some, pretty good, pretty good places to take that character. But that's ultimately what distinguishes heroes from villains or even like anti-heroes is that you know, justices can be subjective, I guess, for people depending on your definition. But I think in like the altruistic view of a hero, even villains should be forced to stand trial. Like that's the thing
Yeah.
with Batman. Like he was always known for not killing even his worst enemy, and sometimes that created even more enemies for him for not taking the necessary action to finally put an end to the chaos and destruction. But yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Those stories would have ended so much quicker if Batman actually killed too.
Right.
Um, so many reboots, and there's also the fact that's like for some people, like death is too easy of a punishment,
That too.
Mhm.
and the way that they feel about the Doctor, like they want him to talk, they need to know what other resources and assets and caches and stuff that they have around Japan that they could be using against him. So I
He
mean, it makes
might.
sense to keep somebody alive, but if it's like present Mike or him, then yeah, drop him.
I did just now think about he might actually be trying to see if the doctor can change Kurogi back, though.
Oh yeah,
Now
that's
that I
fair.
just remembered the conversation that they, recapped at the beginning of this episode of Aizawa saying, if you go, I'll go. They may have even said, we're going with the goal of trying to save our friend, not just save, you know, all these other people. Like they have another goal going on in the background. That now that I think about that, that might be the big reason he was like, now we need this guy.
Man, you could get somebody like Shinzo to just talk to him and be like, revert him. And then he's just forced
Oh,
to do it. That'd be sick.
there you go. There you go. I like where your head's at. Well, it feels like we're winding down a little bit. I'll certainly give you guys the space to say any of your final thoughts, but I just want to say in the spirit of kind of calling things last week with Tokiyami's weakness to fire with
Mm-hmm.
Dark Shadow. My
Nailed it.
next prediction is we had Mount Lady kind of in the background of things now, and we kind of ended this episode with Gigantomachia. For all intents and purposes being summoned. If there's not a Mount Lady Gigantomachia showdown, I will be surprised.
Even if it is something as simple as like her using her hand to like try to crush him, I'm almost referenced a movie that we just recently saw. But yeah, something of that sort, like some level of engagement between them. I agree, but I was laughing earlier because I remembered that scene of Fat Girl going bottom as she was like collapsing onto him. I was really wondering like where Todoroki came from in that scene when the ice pillars just came up, and it's like, oh, we got a
Hmm.
villain that does that too. Which him doing that really saved Tokiyami, but like
Hmm.
this isn't going to plan anymore. It's not structured anymore. You're going to need to bring those kids in from the rear. The ones who are doing evacuation are in the front now. This is absolute chaos. You know, the last thing that I wanted to bring up is we were talking about talking to like the first wielder of One for All, and it really gives me Avatar vibes, and
Hmm.
it's just great. Is this? My heart can't handle it. You know, I always talk about how if we weren't doing this podcast, I'd probably read the manga, but the way that this episode hit me is the reason why I stick to the anime, because to see it in that detail with those voices, with the absolute chaos and the tension, like that's why I try to stick with my initial reaction being from the anime over the manga as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's just something about the way that they animate it all out, because I assume most of these scenes come directly from the manga and they figure out how they're going to animate it onto the screen. And really the only other thing I want to bring up, because Jay Scotty reminded me when he said Mount Lady, I think it was my favorite scene of the episode, and it's been my favorite just drawn out scenes in a while, was the monologue with Dobby and um Hawks and Dark Shadow, all of
Yep.
them there in the foreground, while Mount Lady was busting through the wall in the background. And like that subtle reminder that there is a war going on behind them, and they're just having
Hmm.
this casual conversation on the top floor. It was powerful, it was beautiful, and it was just the perfect subtle way that if you didn't think about it, you wouldn't have like acknowledged what was going on. But it is just in the back of your mind, hey, there's stuff literally bigger going on besides just these three people doing one thing. But because they're our main characters, we feel so attached to them. We're going to see more characters just going on in the background, hopefully surviving, but
Yeah.
possibly not.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. Bigger things literally happening. That's a good catch there. Great. That's great visual language right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, this was another fun one. Again, we recorded this one early on in the week in order to clear up our schedules for some Tales of the Jedi coverage later this week, as well as, just being kind of hot off the press in terms of just watching these episodes yesterday. So, again, it's always great to incorporate you, the listeners' feedback. So, Animation Deliberation Podcast at Gmail is the best place to do that. Let us know how this episode had you on the edge of your seat, was tugging at your heartstrings, or played with your emotions otherwise. And also, if you're watching Tales of the Jedi or anything else, please let us know about that. Uh, Gentlemen, what do you have going on elsewhere?
Nothing exciting for me. I
Okay.
think I'm hopping on to 323 with Reed Murphy this week. Um, Aside from that, just excited to talk to you about Tales of the Jedi. So send in your feedback.
Cool.
Yeah, just tagging on to that, it will be Thursday, November
Third.
3rd. Yep. Thursday, November 3rd will be when we're actually recording that Tales of the
God, it's
Jedi.
November already.
So, yeah, if you're just trying to get anything that we would talk about on the air before then, just that's our date, feel free to send anything in. Like they've already mentioned and like we've kind of talked about, there's plenty of ways to give us feedback, and one of the great ones is our social media. You can find us on Twitter at AnimationDelib1 and Animation and Instagram and Facebook, Animation Deliberation Podcast on both of those. And yeah, that's all that I have going on outside right now. I really need to get better at that plug. I listen to Haley Hobbs on source pages, and it sounds like it's recorded every time she drops her social medias, and she does it just ad libbed. It's the same thing every time. I'm like, I need to work on this.
You'll get there. I have faith in you. You're doing a stellar job thus far. It's a tough act to follow. Haley Hobbs has her shit together. So
She does.
That
okay.
is no understatement.
All right. Well, thanks as always for tuning in. That's TOONIN.
B plus Ultra, and as always, stay whelmed.
And just remember, love can make you fly. Muscle, muscle.
Nice.
Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.